present us the Italian civil protection mechanism and how volunteer groups are engaged in this mechanism?
The civil protection system is organized with the main coordination of the activities done by the Department of Civil Protection. In this cooperation, all forces belonging to the public system, from the ministries to the local authorities, including the regions, the provinces, the municipalities, take part in the system, both in case of emergency and in case of prevention and preparedness activities. Even the private sector can be involved. So, for example, if some companies in particular are relevant for a particular initiative or in a particular emergency, such as telephone companies, railway companies, those are also involved in the activities. Volunteers are one of the essential components of the national civil protection system, because they, by law, belong to, are one of the operational components along with the armed forces, with the police, with the national health system, with the National Red Cross. They are over 800,000 people spread throughout the country. They are organized in volunteers organizations which provide them with training, and so they are people who know how to react, how to assist the population, how to give a contribution in case of emergency. They also give major contributions for preparedness and prevention activities. For example, we have an initiative in Italy that we have launched since a few years, where they take part actively in raising the awareness of the population, so speaking to the people of their communities themselves.
And is there any official training of this group of volunteers by the government or by any national organization?
The civil protection recognizes some national organizations of volunteers which are registered in a national register, and those are the ones who are that we as a national Department of Civil Protection contact to when we need volunteers, and those are the organizations that provide the official training to volunteers, so that they can be adequately trained for the activities that they need to carry on.
And do you have any example or any good case studies about the intervention of a group of volunteers into the mechanism and to any drills or operations that you have implemented, either in Italy or even abroad?
As I said before, in fact, in Italy we have launched this campaign. It's a national campaign since a few years, and it is played in main squares where stands are set up once a year, main square of many villages and cities all over the country. And these stands provide information to the population about how to react in case of a certain emergency, so for different kind of risks. Information are provided even through leaflets, but it's volunteers who provide those information, also in English, to tourists or to any kind of person that can find himself or herself on that area in that historical moment. And the added value is that, of course, people entrusted those volunteers because they come from the same communities. They are fellow citizens who are trained and know how to explain, how to react in case of emergency and so on, and of course on people that are known before, and so this is particularly effective.
We know that the last years Italy has suffered several disasters, either by earthquakes or floods or even forest fires. How do you evaluate the contribution of the volunteers into the operations that have taken place either during the emergencies or after the emergencies?
Italy is unfortunately very much a disaster-prone country, so as you said, we experience continuous disasters. The contribution of the volunteers, especially in the last major national emergencies such as L'Aquila, for example, of 2009, but even the most recent ones has been very significant, because they have been involved in all kind of activities for assisting the population, from setting up the tents, camps, to assisting and providing support in the coordination structure on the ground, which is the coordination structure that the department establishes after an emergency, when there is need of a national coordination. And they are very well, they proved to be very well trained, and so they could actually provide all kind of supports, from working on setting databases on the computer to, as I said before, more logistics operations. But they can also be engineers carrying out damage assessment on buildings after earthquakes.
We know very well that in Italy the voluntarism is very high, and you have, as you said, so many thousands of volunteers. But in some other countries, it's now at the beginning. What would you suggest to these countries, if you could suggest, for example, about the organization and support of such groups of volunteers?
My suggestion would be, first of all, to establish a clear chain of communication, of control of the activities. Volunteers are, as I said, can give a major contribution. Of course, they have to be trained for it, and they must be clear that they cannot take part improvising. That would be my first recommendation. Also, I would recommend that the government provides, let's say, makes an effort to include this, recognized officially by law, by an ad hoc initiative, these volunteers within the national system. For example, in Italy, we have a presidential decree which reimburses the company of the volunteers if they lose, let's say, days of work to engage in activities for the civil protection. Then they can be replaced, so that their company can hire other people to replace them for the time that they are not working, and there is an official reimbursement by the state, by the government, for these activities. So
we know very well that in case of an emergency, there are groups of volunteers who are coming from different countries, even from all the world. How important do you think might be the establishment of a base of communication and collaboration between the various groups that exist, for example, in the European Union? Let's place a frame just for the discussion.
I think that communication is at the basis of effectiveness, so of course that would be very useful. And communication also allows to prepare for emergencies in advance, and allows to establish standard operating procedures, because I believe it is very important to be able to respond and to know already in time of ordinary activities what to do in case of an emergency. So I would definitely go for the establishment of an effective communication system among the organizations, even of different countries.
I was wondering if the national authorities or the Italian government organizes events which bring together the various group of volunteers and actually enforce their collaboration and their communication. Is there such a activity?
Yes, as I said, there are a gathering of the volunteers which happen periodically, so that the system is taken together, kept together. And those events are very important because the volunteers can meet, can exchange experiences, can know each other, and these are also experiences to get them updated on major developments that can also be interesting and relevant for their future activities and future participation in civil protection activities, both at local level and at national level.
And just to close this discussion, what's your opinion about the intervention of this group of volunteers into the civil protection mechanism? Is it generally positive, or it's neutral, or it's maybe negative if there are such examples?
I deeply believe that they provide an added value for the reasons I mentioned before, and for example, in particular, because they help their communities and themselves, and there are people that are known to the community. They are not people who come from outside, so this is a very important element to be considered. Also, they really bring a number of expertise in several domains, several areas, which can be very relevant to the initiative, to the activities that have to be carried out, and they are trained to do that. So they know how to be integrated in the system. So I believe that the volunteers are really an added value, and we in Italy make great use of that and take much advantage of that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.